Hi, Dr. McLaughlin here, Dr. Bo. Thank you for taking these little short classes. I can give them again in more detail. If these don't make sense, let me know. But I want to make my way down. We've already done the atlas, and we've done the cervical spine, why it straightens. That's a biggie for me. Why does that straighten? Everybody says it's because you look down at the phone, look down at the computer. That might be part of it, but I remember going up to a lecturer one time saying, could it be that it's straight because we're asking it to spin? Because I'm always trying to figure out why BJ was so up on that atlas, and that's why it straightens. Not so much from looking down, but because we request rotation from the mid and lower cervical spine, and in order to get rotation out of this area, you have to make it straight. So eventually the body goes, leave it straight. We're not gonna bring it back into a curve every time he stops, trying to turn around. But when you turn around, it recruits the mid-cervical spine, straightens it. And that, to me, is the real 80-90% reason why that neck is straight. It might not be everything, but it sure isn't just looking down at the phone or the computer. That's what started back in the computers where it came out. Everybody, oh, you're looking down at the computer, that's why your neck's straight. No, it's because we're asking it to turn. If you get that atlas working, go to an upper cervical chiropractor or a chiropractor who doesn't just pop the neck. Again, if you just take a neck like that's stuck at the top and do that, and you're just turning the neck, you're popping the lower and mid cervical spine, and you're going to abuse it. You're going to abuse these discs, and that's what I'm saying when I talk about the low back. Same thing happens down in the lumbar spine. If you just turn this, you're going to pop the easiest vertebrae first, which is usually always L4 and L5. And then, they crack the whole back. Crack. And look, we cracked the back. We're chiropractors. The cracking, I want to go over that today. The cracking has very little to do with this. It cracks because air can make a sound going into the joint or out of the joint. That's the major sentence of this video. When you turn the head to stress the joint, there's the knuckle right there. That will pop if you open it or close it. Of course, a chiropractor, usually, it's the first thing I learned, was close the joint. Do your adjustment, and you'll see Dr. Max and Dr. Ed, Dr. Brenda, you'll see them all bringing the chin up and pushing forward, inducing the lordosis, and the popping sound you hear is from, where is it? Closing that knuckle right there. It's called a facet. There's the superior joint, here's the inferior joint. And when you use your fingers, you go in there and you do a push there, you're doing a very accurate push. You're not cracking the whole neck. You're not just, because when you turn if you just turn the neck, I know I get too excited. When you turn the neck, it separates joints. See how that's separating there? So if I just turn his head, it's gonna crack, not because of a bone sound. I know I just made a bone sound, but the sound is from the air going in. See the joint right here? If I go, it will make a popping sound as the air goes in. It can also make a popping sound as you close the joint down. So understand that clicking that everybody's all excited about can happen with closing the joint or sucking the air into the joint. Either way, you get a clicking sound. Of course, the chiropractor's main job is to close the joint. But you'll see there's some I've seen with like big weightlifters, and they come in behind the weightlifter and take the neck and lift up on the shoulders and put the hands behind the head. And see, that's the opening kind of clicking sound. You're going, and you're opening the joint, sucking air in, making a cracking sound. And you hear the person say, oh, that feels good. It actually distorted the neck, made the neck misalign with losing its curvature. And that's why you'll see the chiropractors I train, you'll see them inducing the lordosis. That's the way the sound is made. Or if anything, you'll see the hand up really high. They're working on this atlas, not trying to do anything here, just trying to work the atlas joint, the condylar joints here, and aligning the atlas right and left and so forth, and doing that kind of adjustment. These little guys make little sounds. But you want basically to squeeze the air out as you approximate or close the joints together to a more efficient handshake, right? As the facets, you can think of the facets like a handshake. Here's the vertebrae out of line, and then when you adjust it, you do this, you push it together. You see these little air joints in here? This one here, the one right there? It goes away, and now you got the joints approximating, I call it, each other, or closing down, and the air makes a popping sound as it comes out. But if you take and put the chin down and adjust with putting the chin down and then turn the head all the way, just grab the skull and turn it, you see some people doing that. They are actually straightening the neck, turning it, and by turning it, watch again, you'll open these knuckles. That's a real important thing to get. You're opening those knuckles. It makes a popping sound, but it's a complete negative kind of thing to do. You shouldn't open the joints up. The head shouldn't be shoved down, but it'll make a louder crack actually in flexion. Distorting the neck into a worse position will make a louder sound. Yay, I made a loud sound. It's really a backward adjustment or a backward nothing. It's not even an adjustment. That's why you'll see the adjustments when my students do an adjustment. They're usually the chin is up, then the thrust is delivered to close the facet. You can do multiple ones, or you can just do an alignment adjustment with the atlas or axis. But very rarely do we ever grab the skull and watch this, watch these knuckles, open them up. That's why you can get the big, powerful weightlifter to make a cracking sound that no one that tried to do a correct adjustment of closing the facets and inducing the lordosis and putting the curvature back in the neck, which is the way you want to, this is normal, and you try to do that to a big, powerful guy and close down these little air pockets here, it requires a lot of skill. Right at the end, you'll see them pause right at the end, and they go and do the adjustment because you're doing an adjustment, not a manipulation. That's why we discern from a manipulation, cracking, just grabbing it and cracking the head or bringing the shoulders down or whatever. Or the one with the new one is what coming in behind and bringing up the elbows. That's the one. Let's look at that. He's pushing the elbows up like that and doing this to the girl, right? You see what that does? That gaps these knuckles and it makes a clicking sound. Yay, it made a clicking sound. It actually misaligned the patient, the person, okay? Correct adjustments are usually done with the patient face down and we're doing pushing like this because we're approximating. You see, the adjustment is to, the quote is to close the facet. You want to close the facet. That's the first thing we learned out of school. Close the facet. That's what you're trying to do to the lesion, the subluxation lesion. Subluxation is a bone out of line with a vertebrae above or below, and you're trying to realign it and close that facet. So when you see somebody, the weightlifter, it's the one that got to me the most, he comes in behind and they do the cracking like that. You've just misaligned the entire neck. And also you put pressure on the discs, because do we want pressure on the disc? Do we want to squeeze those discs in the front? So by doing that kind of adjustment, you're squeezing the disc, and if they're in trouble, you're going to aggravate them more and they can rupture. Which way? This way. And that's the way they rupture, and they go into the nerves, and you wonder why a herniated disc or so forth can be named, and you get nerve pressure down your hands or arms. You're trying to, the adjustment per se would be that kind of a thing. You want to put that, you want to induce the lordosis. Same thing down here, induce the lordosis. Putting somebody on their side and just grabbing the hip and rotating the hip, that will straighten, it will induce a straightening. Again, putting more pressure on the lumbar discs, causing them to collapse and possibly become injurious. I saw Dr. Max do it on the other day. He had the patient pretty much rolled on her side or his side, and he had his hand here, and he was just doing, watch this, he did that. You see that? That's just like in the neck when we do that. That's a closing of the facets, where you see people do this and then roll the pelvis down. See that? Opening these facets, it's not what you want to do. The patient leaves the office like that. You're trying to put this lordosis, and that's what Dr. Max was doing. He rolled the whole patient almost in mass on the side, and then put his hand here and went up, just like that. He did not do any, sometimes there are adjustments, of course. If a bolt goes into an engine block or something crooked, you can do it backwards. So there is sometimes we do a pull down, but most of the adjustments that are to be left alone after the adjustment is done in the inducing lordosis. Inducing the lordosis. You see, we don't want to straighten by rotating the neck and cracking it. It'll make, again, I'll say it one more time, makes more cracks when you distort the vertebrae or pull it apart and damage it. So be careful of those loud cracks. They're not all beneficial. Thank you. like and subscribe.